I'm Liv Gagnon. I'm the co-founder of Choir. We are a diversity tech platform. We're committed to bringing more representative voices to the stage. And I'm joined by three people who've been a total inspiration to me personally in my career, and probably to a lot of you as well. These three totally baller event planners and event executives. We have Matt Middleton, the president and CEO of Advisor Circle. You've probably heard of Future Proof. Cece Persha, who we can all thank for this amazing conference. And Sam Allen, VP of Digital Marketing at Carson Group. You know, what's really cool about this panel, why I was really excited to moderate this, is because all three of you have very different perspectives on the event space. Sam, you head digital marketing for one of the industry's longest running legacy conferences. The Excel conference has been going on since the 90s. I think it's probably changed a little bit since then, but a lot of us have probably been there. Cece, your firm, CJN Communications, you have a team of amazing event planners, and you plan a lot of these types of events. People don't realize this. Like, this is just one of the many projects that she has, and was also Disney trained, which is very cool. And Matt, you launched a new event last year, Future Proof, and so you're in year 2, bar is high, no pressure. So all of you bring those unique experiences, and when I asked you what the secret sauce was and what you felt like was the most important part of that conversation, all of you said the same thing, even though you're coming from different places, and you all said it was the human connection of it all, and that was the key to creating a really great experience. So Sam, I want to start with you. I want to talk about human connection, and I'm curious how the advisors or marketing executives in the audience here should approach the large umbrella topic of human connection as events and just the event space in general changes so rapidly. Now we're seeing so many hybrid and digital events. So I'm curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is, I come at it from a digital marketing perspective, and that's really important because I think we're all aware that digital media, online communities, the Internet of Things has leaked into every facet of our lives, whether it's professional, personal. And so at Carson Group, when we think about Excel Represent, our different events, we're really looking at what's the experience that the attendees having at the event? How can digital add to that? How can we start to build a community online where these attendees can connect, share their experience, amplify what they're learning, amplify the messages that we're trying to put out there, and then also let that experience live on afterwards. So it comes down to a couple things, making sure that we have shareable moments, making sure that the content is worthy of sharing, having those provocative conversations that are kind of carrying on afterwards, and then from the brand side, making sure that engagement is at the center of everything we do. So if you've ever been to one of our events or you follow it online, you'll notice that there is not a single post about Excel or about Excel Represent that doesn't have some type of response from the Carson handle, and then also usually from some of our executives and thought leaders too. So we give our executives tools and training on how to engage, how to provide really substantial kind of, again, provoking conversation online, so that way they can carry on the conversation far past the event.
Yeah, and what does that training look like for executives? If they're coming to this experience without that digital marketing background, like how does one go about training them to be very engaging online, and is that a complicated process?
It is, and I'll be honest, I didn't get it right at first. I started at TD Ameritrade actually, and with some of our events and getting our executives and the executive presence online, and it really comes down to giving them a framework on how to check in, because we know that they're really busy at these events. They don't have time, like our social media specialists do, to be constantly monitoring the conversation. So giving them a framework on, can you please give us, 5 minutes on the top of every hour, you get on, you run through your feed. Here are the things to look for. Here's kind of our content plan for the entire event. So if you see conversations going on around this, we'd love for you to put your input there. But the biggest thing that I think is important to keep in mind is that it shouldn't feel forced. It shouldn't feel scripted.
Yeah.
Social media is a place that's built for human-to-human connection. And so it should be authentic. So we really avoid giving them any type of canned responses. And even from the brand handle, I mean, we kind of script out the things we want to promote and the things we want to post on, but we actually put the social media specialists in the room with the presenters, and then we let them tell the story from there. They're trained in the brand voice, they understand our message and who we are, and that really kind of comes out in a way that doesn't feel forced or, again, kind of canned and scripted.
Yeah. Matt, I'd love to hear, so there's a challenge in creating, cultivating a community in an event that's in its first year, right? You're asking people to trust and believe in your event enough to like pay to go to it, enough to sponsor it, and then once they're there, you know, how do you define what that community looks like?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? I think we look at events in isolation typically in our industry, which is the wrong approach. When you think about, obviously we're at a marketing conference, right? And so when you think about it, events should just be another engine, right? We don't have, at Advisor Circle, we don't believe in a funnel. We have multiple engines. And so when you think about events, most people focus on, like for instance, Future Proof. Everyone's like, wow, bright colors, jolt. Bright colors, stands out, pops. What most people don't realize is this, in our industry, it's mostly about fostering relationships. You're not here selling anything that someone's going to buy off the shelf. And so every single connection you make is valuable. And so the opportunity for everyone here and anyone who's thinking about creating events is not thinking about the 3 or 4 days you spent at the event, but rather what you do between this event and the next event. And so when you think about cultivating a community, yeah, there's growth tactics to get thousands of people in one place at one time. But mostly we think about what do we want to stand for? What is the shared experience that we want people to have? And then when you think about it, we're not really the product, we're just bringing a platform to people. Everyone together, the community becomes or defines what these events are. And to Sam's point, when you think about digital, it's just how do you tech enable everything so that you could scale it? And how do you create connective tissue between one event? And when I say events, just to clarify, I mean shared experience. So it could be a webinar, it could be a seminar, it could be a dinner, it could be a 1,000-person event, right? There's so many different things when you think about that. And I would say the biggest thing that most people in our industry fail at is really thinking about what is the tactic for the annual event strategy versus this event in isolation to that event. And there's a lot of dollars being spent, a lot of time being allocated, and most people don't think about that and how you cultivate the community. And the people I see, I mean, I can't really see anyone right now, but most people, I know everyone here because of the event, right? We're kind of on this circuit. And so you think about just the community we've all fostered over the time. And so we think about it as not transactional or 3 or 4 days annually, but rather 365 days. And how do we support and grow a community that we want to be a part of?
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And the way you put it, that connective tissue in between events, I'm guilty of this. I often, when I hear event, I think of this, right? And a webinar, to your point, a course, half day of 2 speakers can be so impactful depending on the size of your business. And it's just about that connective tissue is really what the important part of that experience is.
Yeah.
Cece, I mentioned your background with Disney, which I bring up like every time I talk to you because I think it's really freaking cool. Because Disney is the epitome of the event experience, right? And one thing that we don't realize, maybe until something goes wrong at an event, but we don't realize as attendees how much goes into event planning, logistically. Things that we don't even think about. And so I'm curious, from an on-site perspective, no matter what size the event is, what goes into planning an event that is specifically focused on human connection, like Jolt?
Sure. So the first thing that I always start with, and I always get this question, is, from clients and companies talking to me about, how do I start my event? I want to plan an event. What do I do? And they want to know about budget, and they want to know about, we have a great logo and we should put on an event. Well, that's not a reason to put on an event just because you have budget and you have a great logo. You have to think about your audience, the community that you've connected with already. What do they want to hear? What is it that they want to learn? What do they want to feel? And so if you can answer those questions well, then you know your audience well enough, and you can start developing goals for your audience to attend and participate at your events and create some magical content. But if you don't have answers to those questions, then an event is not for you yet. And that's where the human connection is, where you look at things from the perspective of the attendee and not from the perspective of your KPIs or your bottom line or your ROI. You look at that later. You first have to think about, what does my attendee want to experience, and can I provide an awesome journey for them? And then you start building programming and show production and all the supportive elements that contribute to that journey.
Yeah, I love that. Sam, I think you mentioned when we were talking a few weeks ago that, back to that human connection element and then tying digital back into that, even from the standpoint of, like, if someone tweeted that their feet hurt or like they were tired or something, like someone on your team literally brings them.
Yes, there's actually someone in this room, I believe, that has been the recipient of we call it Surprise and Delight. And yeah, basically we monitor throughout the entire event. And then if we have someone who's like, my room was really loud last night, I didn't get any sleep, or my feet are killing me, or I can't find any water around here, we have kind of a little room that's full of Carson branded swag. If they're like, I forgot my sunglasses, we bring them sunglasses. If they had a big win, or they had a really great experience, we'll bring them like a little bottle of champagne with our logo on it. So yeah, bring them water, ibuprofen, Epsom salt, foot soak, and find them out on the floor and deliver it. And it's funny because it's part of that kind of customer experience, creating this awesome kind of fun moment, but it almost always ends up on social. They snap a picture of it, this is so cool. So yeah, it started out, I think the first time I ever ran a program like that, I was pretty young, and it's still relevant to this day. It's a great tactic.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in there? I think it's interesting too because, and I totally agree, it's phenomenal. Most people think about, again, the live experience, like what we're all here for. But the event experience starts when someone registers, right? Or someone goes to your website. It helps when you amplify their experience when it's on site, like you are being noticed, right? There's 500, 600 people here. Imagine someone reaching out to you based on a thought you had, acknowledging you as an individual. Like, that's so powerful. And you think about the customer experience. Again, events aren't transactional, like we're humans. Connect at that level, support them, right? Once they register, make them feel something, get them excited, right? And that is how you create long-lasting relationships. And then your events kind of compound by themselves because people have an affinity to that brand.
Great point. Kind of on the topic of human connection, one thing that is really cool about you three is that we've all worked together in the realm of diversity at events. All three of you have worked on conferences that have been choir certified. They've met a baseline of representation of women, people of color, and you've all placed a focus on creating speaker lineups that look like the world we live in, right? Not like a stock image library. And so, Matt, I want to start with you on this, because we've been talking about this for a long time, how much speaker diversity means to you, not just from it's great to have diversity on stage, but from a business perspective. And so I'm curious, when you were kicking off Future Proof and building the marketing messaging around that, what role did that play in your communication?
Yeah, I mean, so future-proof, I mean, quite literally the name of it is future-proof, right? So we think about, not today, but what's the business like in the next 7 to 10 years? And very simply put, right, I mean, we could go down a whole track on social responsibility, but at the end of the day, it's good business, right? You think about it, Deloitte just had a study out last year, 80% of financial decisions are made by women. Why don't we represent our industry like that? Why don't we think about the experience and cater to a more diverse audience? If you think about, being in business in the next 7 to 10 years, like, you're going to fall behind or get left behind if you don't have that ingrained into your practice. And so for us, it was easy. It was obvious, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about speakers, and I think too the speaker lineups, if they're more diverse and inclusive, as you can see in these rooms at this conference, one of the reasons Joel looks and feels so different is because the community of attendees is so diverse and brings so many different perspectives than we typically see. And so, yeah, I just love that, and to call out CC and Robert for helping make that happen. Sam, I'm curious, your thoughts on the topic of DE&I when it comes to event planning.
Yeah, I think in my experience, in our industry, it's relatively new. It's something that, as you look at a couple years ago, we still had a lot of manels. We still had a lot of just really, white men on stage the entire time. And it's changing, which is excellent. But I think something to keep in mind is something that's really helped us at Carson with Excel is, back to Matt's point about everything starting at the moment you register and you have this large community online, start making the case, like telling them why diversity is important, why we've made these super intentional decisions about who's going to be on our stage this year and what it's going to add to your experience, what you're going to take away from it. Start that communication right away. Use your channels, use social media, use email, push that out there so that way when they show up, it's not, a shock. It's not it's lost on them that this is something that we've put together with a lot of intention. I think that's something that all events can really lean into. Invite your speakers to participate in your social ahead of the event. Have some, a LinkedIn Live with some Q&A to really increase awareness and also increase excitement and maybe a little bit of the fear of missing out for those who are not attending. Lean into that because it's a really powerful channel and can add to the overall experience once you get in the room with everyone.
Totally, and it's not just about what the people on stage look like, right? It's about diversity in the sense of accessibility, how you're communicating with people, communicating with a diverse audience that take in information differently, and a younger generation that isn't in their email all the time. Maybe it's an Instagram ad campaign or whatever it is. Or accessibility, is your conference at a location where people can actually easily and affordably attend, right? Is it in the mountains of, I don't know, Colorado at like a resort that not a lot of people have the means to get to, right? So that's something that, I think is really important to continue thinking about as an industry. And I know, CC, that's always been a focus of CJN before we were really talking about this on the main stage. So I'm curious how that's really been a part of CJN and then also, the Joel experience.
Yeah, so diversity in planning events for me has always been, as I've told Liv in the past, it's just common sense. Because you want your event community to reflect the real community. And so for me, it's just common sense. So I've been planning events for a very long time. And I've always planned them through the lens of diversity and a reflection of the community. And I think that there's a misconception sometimes that if you look through your event through that lens, that then you are compromising on content somehow, that you're only focused on that. And so that's absurd. It actually benefits your content and makes your content so much better. And your event is also so much more fun and has so much more energy and so much more color when you get people in a room and make them slightly uncomfortable. Because that is where the learning happens. You don't learn from hearing the same thing over and over again, from the same people over and over again. It's when you put people together that are different, that challenge you, that look different, that sound different, that think differently. And that's where the growing happens, and that's where the magic happens, and that's how you build an event community.
Yeah, thank you for that. I'm going to throw a wild card in here, put you all on the spot. When you think about human connection and you think back to events you've worked on, is there, I'll start with you, Matt, since you're right next to me. Is there when you think about human connection, is there a certain memory that comes to mind that made you really attracted to the event space, that made you think like, oh, this is a way to connect that, is different, and I want to dig into this more?
Yeah, I mean, not a particular moment, but when you think about, so my background, like I didn't plan to be in media or events, financial services, kind of just happened, probably like most of us in this room. I got into the space, or was welcome to the what I would call wealth management space in about 2016. And I remember attending an event, and at the time I didn't know anything. And I remember just seeing the audience. And so prior to that, I worked in the hedge fund space, which is the complete opposite of what I'm looking at right now, and for all the wrong reasons. And so when you think about it, it was, I'm smarter than you, you're young, kind of conform to this belief and that. And then when I walked into the wealth management space through an event lens, I realized this is a space I wanted to be in. And it's because of, even at the time, right, when you talk about, we have ways to go from a D&I standpoint, but when you think about the welcoming nature of particularly the financial advice space, right, and then even more so, the people that come to these events and community builders, right, there's truly no competition in this space. It's more about how do we help each other out, and I think that's spread across social media and all of that, and most people in here are avid social media users. But I would say that moment in time when I went to that first event was just kind of being vulnerable, right, and saying, I don't know anything, and going to these sessions and learning and putting myself out there and asking dumb questions made me realize, like, one, events are really powerful for that reason. Two, this community is really powerful because they don't make me feel like I don't belong. Yeah. And three, they want to help usher me in so that I could provide real value in return. Yeah. And so, yeah, not one particular memory, but there's a reason why I've been here for the last, now call it 7-8 years.
Yeah, and it takes an experience like that to really realize, okay, this is a community that I can also throw something new at, right? They might be willing to adopt something that they haven't seen before, because, just from the nature of this wealth management community. Cece, how about you?
Yeah, when you asked the question, I knew the moment for me. I planned my first really large-scale event back in 2007. And I used to watch the opening videos and opening remarks from the back of the room or the tech table where I usually live, and watch it facing forward. And that year there was no room, and so I had to watch it from the back, facing the audience. And when I could actually see the impact of what we were doing and see everyone's faces and reactions to what they were watching on stage, that was it for me. I knew that I was in my right place because I was creating those moments for an audience, and that's what I knew. Yeah.
Do you know roughly ballpark how many events you've planned and executed?
No.
We'll fact check it after. I'll email you guys. Sam, how about you?
It came to my mind immediately as well. But of course, as you can expect from me now, it has to do with digital. So my first kind of large-scale digital marketing plan for an event was for TD Ameritrade Link conference. And at that event, day one, before we even really got started, there was an advisor that took a picture in Vail Village and was kind of like hyping up the experience. And then the next year, we go back to TD Link. We're in Orlando, and I'm speaking about voice marketing. Same advisor snaps a picture. It's out on social. I'm like, this guy's pretty, on top of it. I'd like to run into him or meet him, but I never did quite yet. COVID happens. No more events, right? So we're really challenged with, TD Ameritrade specifically really had a strong events portfolio. We had a lot of advisor events. We were out on the road a lot, and we couldn't do any of it. So we had to really change the way we were doing things. We took our events and our webinars, and we put them online, and I actually kind of had this crazy idea to do it live on LinkedIn and Twitter, which compliance was at first not a fan of.
Really? Weird.
I persuaded them. But we went live, and this advisor, same advisor, was in the chat asking questions, really engaging. I'm like, man, this guy, he is so good at digital marketing. Well, now I'm at Carson. This advisor's wife is sitting right here. She's the one who runs everything, Lauren Sprung, if everyone knows Larry. So it's just crazy how full circle it really has come, to go from liking and engaging with Larry's tweet, however many years ago that was, to sitting at dinner with Denise last night. It really shows you the power of our big but small community, and how much those relationships matter, and how all of our events are really an opportunity to come together, get better as a community, get better as an industry, and kind of push the world forward, because that's what we're doing. I mean, we're creating wealth, we're creating plans, we're helping people live their best lives. So it's important.
Yeah. Shout out to Larry, by the way.
It just, Denise was like right there, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is so the moment, because it's been a great ride with them. So
Yeah. Well, we have a few minutes left, and I know y'all have your workbooks, and I want to make sure you walk away with something really specific and actionable, whether you're considering planning a small event, whether you're considering putting on a competitor event to Jolt. I won't tell anyone. Whether, whatever it is, I wanted to ask each of you if if you had one takeaway piece of advice for the folks in this audience, what would that be? Matt, I'll start with you.
Yeah, very simple. Most people in this room aren't going to want to create something like this or even bigger. So the things you have to think about is really three. Is like, do I just simply attend? And what are my tactics there? How do I get the most out of an event? Right? Think about the connective tissue between events and moments in time. 2, if you actually dare to create an event, hire CC. If you actually dare to create an event, think about what's the purpose and the intention. Why are you bringing people together, right? This business is really strong on referrals. So think about growing a community versus just serving your current community. And then 3, if you want to partner to create, think about the centers of influence that you use today, and how do you partner to create something magical? And that could be, a lawyer, that could be anyone else in that particular space, but bringing people together to kind of break this herd mentality is really the mechanism that will help drive real fun experience and also grow your business. And so that's the way I think about it. It's, actually owning an event or building an event experience isn't for everyone, and that's fine.
Yeah. Right. Did you all write that down? Okay. Cece.
Yeah, I second that, and I think I bring more of a perspective of how to accomplish that, and I think it's about putting yourself in the total sensory experience of your attendee. So what do I want them to hear, feel, see, smell? What do I want them to pass by in the hallway? These are the things that we look at when we're planning. So put yourself in your shoes of the attendee and think about total sensory, because that really makes the experience. And it doesn't have to be a large event. It can be a very small event, and you can still do that.
Sam?
I think my piece of advice would be to remember that, again, your event, the days that we're together, is just part of it. The run-up and sharing all of that content, introducing your speakers, making sure that it's all very accessible and everyone knows what to expect, all of that can happen online before the event. And then when you're at the event, where can you identify areas and places for the attendees to amplify that message and connect online? So if you know a bunch of your attendees are podcasters, set up a space for them to record. You'd be so surprised, months later, there's episodes releasing that are live at Excel, it's carrying on that message and keeping that brand top of mind. That really helps boost attendance for the next year and creates that really great experience. So,
yeah, amazing. Well, it's cool for me and hopefully for all of you to take a look behind the curtain of these amazing people who are planning these events that we really center our whole year around, what events we're going to be going to. And so I just want to thank you all for sharing your wisdom, and I'm going to volunteer you after this if people have questions. I'm sure you can answer those in the main room. So thank you all for coming here after being out very late last night. Appreciate it.